Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the channel. God, I sound like a YouTuber. Anyway, so today we are going to start talking about how to visualize numerical data. Some of this stuff might be review, and that's fine. I would rather cover too much than too little. And so, yeah, let's just dive in. Terminology. So number of variables involved kind of determines our terminology here. So we have univariate data, and that is essentially the distribution of a single variable. So we're not interested really in relationships at this point. We're just looking at how one variable does its thing. Next, you'll kind of catch on how this. So we got bivariate data. That's the relationship between two variables. That's like x and y. Want to see how they co-vary and co-move together. We can kind of move up if you want to do bivariate or trivariate. 3 variables. That's one way to think about like an interaction. The interaction between the two is the third variable, etc., etc. Eventually, you kind of get lazy and just call it all multivariate data analysis, where you're looking at the relationship amongst many variables at once. Usually, you tend to focus on the relationship between two variables while conditioning the other. And to kind of illustrate how to do this, I've included a video but like starring John Tukey himself, illustrating one of the coolest piece of technology ever to start looking at these extra layers of data. Remember, this is like the 70s, so like be impressed. And it also illustrates how far we've come. So I'll link to that video and kind of embed it here. But yeah, so types of variables. Now I'm not going to go through the whole Stevens levels of measurement. It's a great Nature paper, might be a science paper. It's one of those but we can kind of break it down into like numerical variables and categorical variables. So numerical variables can either be classified as discrete or continuous, essentially interval or ratio, based on whether or not the variable takes on an infinite number of values or only non-negative numbers. Again, the terminology differs a bit across languages, but I want to at least expose you to it so you can communicate with the data scientist in your life. So if a variable is categorical, on the other hand, we can look at it and see if it's ordinal or merely just like a grouping variable. So an ordinal variable maintains rank order. So like freshman, sophomore, senior, or junior, senior, like kind of captures the ranking of years of experience, but you can't do any like addition or subtraction, like is a senior minus a freshman a junior? So the math gets a little dicey when you get into categorical variables. But that's the basic idea, and there are different kinds of data visualizations based on these methods or these data types. So let's look at some data. So we're going to look at the Lending Club data set. It's thousands of loans that were made, not those that were requested, but only those that were made. And it's a peer-to-peer platform where individuals can lend to each other. So obviously not all loans are created equally. The ease of getting a loan is really dependent on one's perceived ability to repay the loan. The less likely someone seems to be able to and be likely to repay the loan, the higher their risk. That's how interest rates work and credit scores. But this is not an economics class. Instead, it's a data class. So we just get to look at it. But keep in mind that these are only the data where the loan was made. We don't have data on just the broad applications, because obviously loans that were not made are going to, for the most part, be perceived as less likely to be able to pay or just something wonky. But then again, I left economics, so my stuff's a little dated. And I'm going to cut that little cutesy line because it's not helpful. Okay, so let's take a glimpse. I apologize if some of the formatting is off. I don't know why, and there's nothing I can do about it right now. So, but let's take a look. This data is from the Open Intro dataset, or library. And just from a glimpse, we can see that there are 55 columns and 100,000 rows. So obviously we can't, and I really don't expect you to look at every single data point in its raw form. That's a lot. And this is only a handful of the variables because the number of columns here just reduces, or is only a snapshot. I think I've restricted it to like 11. But there's a lot of data here, and this peak gives us some hint that there's something going on. So let's just take a subset of these variables. So we're just going to grab, and we can see this just in the code here, we're going to grab loan amount, interest rate, terms of the loan, the grade of the loan, the state that the loan is in, the annual income, as well as homeownership status, as well as kind of a debt-income ratio. Now we're going to look at that. Now it's a little more manageable. Again, I have no idea what's happening with the code in that, like, right there. I don't know. But I'm not going to mess with it because then you will never get videos. So let's clean it up a little. As a data frame. Here we have the variable name and the description. Loan amount is the amount of loan received in US dollars. Interest rate is in an annual percentage. Term of the loan is in whole number months. Grade of the loan is A through G and represents the quality of the loan and the likelihood of the loan being repaid. Higher levels, more likely. State is where the US borrower resides, not the lender. Annual income is the borrower's annual income, including any secondary income sources, all in US dollars. And the homeownership indicates whether a person owns but has a mortgage, or rents their home. And lastly, we've got a debt to income ratio. So we got a lot of pieces here. Let's slice them up. In terms of variable types, we have loan amount is numeric and continuous. Interest rate, numeric, continuous. I'm not going to read all these to you, but it's good to have a sense of what kind of structure your data have before you even dive in. So that is where I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to encourage you to check out John Tukey's video, and we are going to I'm going to show you how to crawl through some of this data and different ways to plot it.